Oh. All right. Let's do it, baby. Take a sip of my iced tea. Unsweetened, obviously. Take a sip of the old iced coffee. How many beverages do I have? Let me get a sip of the water. They don't call me Donnie Beverage for no reason. We got a lot to talk about. We got too much to talk about. There's no time to waste. Let's fucking do it. Woo. All right. Welcome to the Dan Black Attack Podcast. I'm Dan Black, and here's what I think. We got a lot to cover. Before we do it, remember, this is a podcast, so standard stuff applies. Give us 5 stars in Apple Podcasts. And as always, I say, hey, this podcast is what I think. Give us 5 stars in a review, and you tell me why I'm wrong in the description, and I'll read it on the podcast about why you think I'm a dipshit or why you think I'm wrong. And then we'll see what happens next. Anyway, look, we've been gone. I've been gone on this podcast for a 2-week span, as the last podcast I put out was basically when the world exploded, many would say. And so had to think about where's the Dan Black podcast, Dan Black Attack. Well, I became very Italian since I've been gone. The Dan Black Attack podcast. The Dan Black Attack podcast. I don't know. It might be offensive. Actually, I'm Italian. I'm allowed to do that. I found out I'm Italian about 3 months ago. It's a story for another time. And but where does this podcast fit in all this? I took a little bit of time to listen and take in the new environment that we live in, which is still ever evolving. And then I thought about how can we contribute to the discussion, and I was like, you know what? I think we could just contribute to this discussion by let's try to answer some basic questions of what the F is going on in this world. I turn on CNN, I turn on whatever channel, all the channels, Fox News, whatever, all of your preference. Turn them on. I don't know what's happening. How much news do I have to ingest to actually understand what should I do? There's a pandemic going on. Can I go outside? Can I do this? Can I go to the gym? How can I help with these equality movements going on in this country? Anyway, so I'm going to tackle the questions of the day on this podcast, and I'm going to turn this podcast for now into what I'm calling the regular guy news. Welcome to, as a matter of fact, I have a little song for you guys to kick off the regular guy news. Here we go. That's right. Welcome, everybody. Thanks for tuning in to the regular guy news. I'm Dan Black, and I'm a regular guy. And helping me out with the regular guy news, you know her from the Comedians Wrestling Podcast if you listen, Miss Erin Finnerty.
Hi, everyone.
Uh,
Regular guy news correspondent. Happy to be here.
yeah. So basically, what do I mean by Erin? Thanks for being here. Erin's gonna
I'm very
be
happy to be here. Thank you.
here looking stuff up, informing me when I'm ignorant, which is gonna be frequent, frankly, many would say. But yeah, so what I mean by the regular guy news? I just mean like every news source feels so pretentious and also missing the mark on like what actually affects my daily life right now. We live in this like confusing time. I just need to know like 5 or 6 basic things so I know if I should even get the fuck out of my bed in the morning. And also just to understand what's going on in our newly forming society. So, Erin, how does that hit you? How does that feel?
I mean, as someone who watches the news often, I go between CNN and MSNBC. I really see where you're
Wow,
coming
left
from.
leaning. We
I
see your
mean,
allegiance.
what can I say? Sometimes I even fuck around and turn on the BBC if
Yeah.
I'm feeling playful. But I can see where you're coming from with the regular guy news because you have these news anchors, they're doing a great job, but if you're someone like Dan and you're seeking answers to basic things, you have to watch a lot of news and kind of put it together yourself. So
Right.
I think that regular guy news is a great
RGN.
resource. Yeah, the RGN now, yeah, regular guy news network is a great resource for folks and listeners who just
Welcome to RGN, Regular Guy News. If you're regular like me, here's what you need to know. It's not that hard. Okay.
the regular guy network.
Right. Yeah. No. So anyway, all right. Here's the deal. First thing going on in society right now that I want to talk about is that's confusing. Okay. And I think if my barometer, my test for this stuff is, does my mom call me and say like, what is this? Right? Or does my mom call me and completely understand and like misunderstand the point of something? That's how you know we need some clarification. And the first thing I want to talk about is defund the police. That I think that's the main topic.
Yeah.
Again, a great necessary message. This podcast, I support the Black Lives Matter movement. You know that if you're a listener of the pod, of either of my pods. So yeah, defund the police, a great initiative with an extremely confusing name. Defund the police scares the shit out of people. It's not even what they actually mean. Defund the police, you hear it and you think it means abolish the police, which is also something people are saying. Signs, just abolish the police, get rid of the police. Look, I saw in Minneapolis, there's like the city council. I saw a city council member in Minneapolis who is part of that. There's, they have like a veto-less majority where they're saying we're guaranteeing we're going to defund the police, right? So they were going to put this message in effect. And she said a woman, a female anchor was talking to her, and she said like, okay, well, what do you say to people who say, hey, what if I'm being robbed and you want to defund the police, so I'm being robbed, and who do I call? And then her response was, well, that inherently in what you just said, there's privilege. You have privilege. And I was like, okay, I get it. That's a very sexy answer, that like being scared is part of your privilege, right? That you have things to protect and blah, blah. I get that. It makes sense. Conceptually, it makes sense. But also to the voter, to this, the person who wants to understand the message of the day, the older people, not on Twitter, they're not on Instagram all day, right? What does it mean when we get rid of the police? They understand one version of the police. So to be on the city council and answer like that, I thought was very ineffective. Was it intellectually sound? Was it academically sound? Yes, but will it make people vote your way? No, it's going to be like, this person's a kid, is what they're going to think.
Right.
Even though they have, right, Aaron? Am I right, Aaron?
You are correct on this. I think it's just kind of a black and white answer where the issue of defunding the police is kind of a broader subject. It's like a spectrum. And so just to say you're asking that from a place of privilege doesn't really, it's ineffective.
Right. And so immediately, right as people started saying defund the police, everyone was talking about how to rename it, right? It's almost the same thing as when it was like when the black squares were going up on Instagram, it was like, hey, no, you're black squaring wrong, right? And that, again, it's like, it's frustrating because these are all movements that I personally believe in, that I'm excited. I think this is change we need. And then the messaging is all over the map. And I think all this stuff's actually way simpler than some people are making it. Like, a black square in today's time, just if you turn on your Instagram, most people wake up roll over, go to their phone first, right? They probably should kiss their significant other, but they don't. Okay, they roll to their real significant other, which is, an Apple 10. Anyway, so um, I was thinking it's funny. I was thinking some kind of funny joke, and like they got rid of the touch button on the phone.
Mm-hmm.
Like people got less. That's like intimacy with your phone. Some of it's missed.
Right. It's
Or
been
you're touching it
erased.
all over now. You're right. All right. I don't know.
Right.
Anyway,
You need to workshop that one.
yeah. Well, that's what this is for, right? But this is
Yes.
my new open mic. This podcast,
Love it.
essentially. But essentially, if you roll over and you're like, "Hey, what's going on Instagram today?" and you're expecting to see people's podcasts, their dogs, whatever, and you just see everyone you know with just a black square, even with no caption, the power of that's power nowadays. Even if you want to equate it to Firefest, which sounds like almost, I understand that it's a jump down and equating these two amazing movements with this very stupid music festival is silly. But that whole thing went viral and it like gained crazy steam and spun out of control because of those orange squares. You know?
Right.
And people are just like, "What's the orange square?" You're like, Gigi Hadid. That's a person. I don't know who that is, but that's a name I know.
Yeah.
Uh,
Yeah, she's a model. Kendall
yeah,
Jenner, you name it.
right. And you're like, "Wow, this must be something important. There's a unity here, and there's a lot of power in that." So I thought when people were like, "Take your black square down," which I did also, because I was trying to do the right thing. I think we missed out on just the power of like, hey. Now, obviously, is there an argument that that's just for show and whatnot? Yes. But we still live in this social media society, and it's like as Triple H would say, it's time to play the game. Anyway,
Yes. I
well, not
think the
as
fact I
yeah,
think that just, I took mine down too, but I think that many people posted in the morning, like after it happened. Even
right,
if you took it down, it was good to see. And it was revealing of the folks who maybe didn't post or have a positive reaction to it. So I think it did serve a purpose. And I think it's actually a good thing that it was taken, that many people took theirs down
right,
after the fact, just to kind of continue elevating the hashtags that were going around.
right. So I've hammered this point home.
Yeah.
It's at like defund the police. Then we're like reorganize the police, right? Already we want to say what it is, but the initiative of what it is actually really great. Um, and just coming from my perspective as a as a white man who is it's always funny when I talk about my identity. I always think it's very strange because yeah, I'm white. But I didn't have any like ethnic background. My mom's adopted, so I just was always, hey, I'm New York. Oh, you're like, I'm a New Yorker. I don't know,
Yeah. I'm a New York guy.
but yeah, no, I lived a white-facing existence. I've
Yes.
never ever been scared of the police shooting me. And when I was just for no reason, and to put it in perspective, I watched you're watching all these police brutality videos. Um, if you're watching them, I encourage you to watch them. I mean, that's my style. I tell people like you got to be. I just think see it. You got to be informed, and I think now more than ever is not the time to turn a blind eye to the ugliness that we're trying to fix. Um, but I've seen some. I happen to like scroll into like police videos of like white guys who are like giving shit to uh, highway police who pull them over, because the police behavior is ridiculous. But you're like, I've watched black men be killed for less behavior than these white guys are able to say to the police. One guy's just, I watched this video of like a white guy getting pulled over, and he's like, hey, I got it. I was speeding. I was going 60 and a 55. You just told me, write me a ticket, and that's it. What are you doing? Because he keeps being like, you can see the officer is basically harassing him. He's like, like completely militarized, like boot camp, like drill sergeant routine, and he's like, just write me the ticket and let me go. I've committed no crime. I was speeding. It's not a crime. It's
Right.
write me a ticket and let me go. And I was like, exactly. Then the cop goes to pepper spray this guy, and his can is out of pepper spray. And right, and he keeps being like, "You're so lucky, man. You're so lucky." Like takes out the taser, and the guy's just refusing to get out of the car. He's like, "I shouldn't. I'm not getting out of the car." And then you could see how now you cross into the level of like, oh, now you're resisting arrest. But how quickly it escalated and how the cop was the escalator of the situation is it's ridiculous. We need a new version of police. These people work for us. Even my interactions with police always, which are silly to even bring up, but this is my podcast, so I have to try to speak from my experience, has been so militarized. It has been so yelly unnecessarily for someone who is my employee. Okay? LAPD. I mean, I had a guy threaten to arrest me at LAX when I was going to pick up my wife because I wouldn't move. He was like, "You got to move. You got to move." I was like, "My wife is right there coming out of the airport." And he's like, "You don't move. I'm going to write you a ticket." And then he was like, "All right, I'm calling the guys over to arrest you." And then I did a whole loop around. And he wasn't fucking around.
What was the point of doing the loop? Just
because just to keep
could
traffic
flex on
moving
you.
on LAX because it's a piece of shit. But my point is that like, why does this guy have any ability to even arrest me? And that's just the smallest tip of the iceberg of this whole situation.
And the escalation and how I've been pulled over before and the cops are mean to you right away, even if you're agreeable. I don't
they
understand that.
go from a place of like fear, right? It's all like they come from a place of like loud booming voices. You just go like, all right, I better just listen because whatever, this guy's in charge. Immediately, like they're in charge.
When you've done nothing wrong except maybe roll a stop sign and you're clearly not a threat.
Yeah.
It's not right.
Right. I mean, so the thing is this is that I'm not ignoring talking about police brutality, specifically all the completely disgusting murders of African American men at disproportionate rates. I'm also just speaking to white people, like being like, do you like how the cops operate right now? Are you a fan of this routine of the I own you routine? Because the roles have been reversed. You work for me. You work for us. You don't get to pepper spray us when we're peacefully protesting. That should be gone. That should be absolutely gone. If you should be able, your job is to protect. That even comes down to at my worst, you protect me. You protect me from myself, right? That is just gone from the police. It's literally like you mess up, you will be shot. They are allowed to use fatal force. It's insanity. Okay, so defund the police. What does it mean? So I've looked around a bunch of articles. I'm like, what does it exactly mean? One of the most interesting things that I've seen, and I've even heard this before, is that many cops. So I have a quote here from the Dallas police chief David Brown. This is from 2016 in an interview. He said, cops are asked to do too much. Every societal failure, we put it off for the cops to solve. That's too much to ask. Policing was never meant to solve all those problems. So let's go from there. That's from a police chief in Dallas. I imagine not a super liberal guy. Well, actually, Dallas is pretty liberal, but I don't know. I don't know about the cops. Who knows? That's not necessary. But I'm trying to make these things so they're not partisan issues, you know? So right away, we already have police on their own admission that they're doing too much. So what defunding the police means is shrinking, here's the definition, shrinking the scope of police responsibilities and shifting most of what government does to keep us safe to entities that are better equipped to meet that need. It means investing more in mental health care and housing and expanding the use of community mediation and violence interruption programs. Right. So, and also it means recognizing that, okay, recognizing this is kind of a separate point, so I won't even get to it. So because this is going to get into how people of different, this gets into more class issues. So just start from right there. Is there, just simply put, is there a better guy to come to your house? Is there a better guy to come to your house than the cops for a lot of situations?
Right. So, be it a social worker or a mental health professional or an EMT, if it's, a medical emergency, there's a lot of different social services that could intervene in
Right.
many of these situations that are not police.
Like how many times you get a domestic abuse call, right? Let's say, or a domestic spat. Because let's say if it gets super violent, then, right? Because, and first off, I just want to remind you of the term I'm saying here is shrinking the scope of police responsibility. So that is not abolishing police, right? So I have friends, I'll be honest, I have friends who are like, we got to get rid of the police. I think I literally have friends who think we can live with no police force. I'm not there. I can't see what that looks like. You know what I mean? You're gonna have to you need people for crowd control and whatnot, like, right? That doesn't mean they need to be shooting rubber bullets at people's faces, but right, even for like even concerts. Oh, here's where you walk or whatever, you know.
Right.
But if you think of like domestic spat, if you sent in someone, even if they came with one officer, but the officer's just there as like a bodyguard kind of situation, and right, so that's one partner of when you have, instead of just having two partners both armed, ready to kill at the jump of a dime, right, to protect their lives. That's always the thing about cops I never get. They're always talking about how I was scared. You're like, no, you don't get to be. When you signed up for the force, we don't care about you. It's not about you. You know? You don't get to be like, I was scared, especially when you're wearing a bulletproof fucking vest.
And you have a gun in your hand.
Yeah, you have to take part of being a cop, part of what your paycheck is, and we can debate the paycheck being higher and whatnot, 100%. And I think that would come from defunding. You have less people and blah, blah, blah. But part of that is that you have to hesitate a little more before you shoot. You take the risk of that fucking 5 seconds or whatever, or 1 second delay of like, oh, I could get the jump on this guy. If you were in a duel, right? If you guys were like both hit high noon and you're in the duel and it's like who could shoot first, your job is to not shoot first. All right? Your job is to make sure that guy actually has a gun, it has bullets in it, and that he actually is engaged in this duel and didn't think the thing was a joke before you shoot and he had a banana. You know? You're not instead of now we have the cops who you guys take your paces. Are you following this metaphor?
Oh, 100.
They left the saloon. They do the paces. The cops now are shooting at 8 paces, and you're going to 10.
Rolls by. Yeah.
Right. Anyway, okay. So, we're talking about what spat. So let's say you go in there. Domestic violence. How many times do you think about a domestic spat happens? They bring 2 cops in. They just arrest the guy, right? This is for my bros out there, for my regular guys, my bros. How many times you hear you're like, oh, they always arrest the guy or whatever? Well, what else are they gonna do? They're inequipped. They're not qualified to handle this. So they remove the person who's the bigger threat, which is the man most of the time. So. Because it's like, all right, well, they're bigger, right? Or
Right.
stronger.
I think it's usually who struck who. So you oftentimes the man, and it's just even if I've seen it go down on live PD before where there's a domestic dispute, and sometimes it's the woman who maybe leaves a mark on the man and she's all clean, but usually the other way around. And they're even if the woman decides like I want to work this out, they still by law have to take the man away in handcuffs.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay. Right. So, but what if you had someone come in and worked out the issue?
Right.
We all
Mediate.
fight with our significant others and stuff, and then we like work it out. If you had something that escalated far, maybe someone came in and worked it out with you, gave you somebody to go see, helped you break that barrier we have of mental health, where in this country we kind of just ignore mental health issues. Someone came in and said, why don't you come in? You know what? You guys are perfect for my friend. Why don't you go see them? Right? And then the cops can be like, you're mandated to go to that one thing. As opposed to bringing up charges. Why don't you help people? You know?
Yeah.
I could see something like that working.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, specifically talking about mental illness, which I thought was really interesting. Where's my stat here? Law enforcement spends 21% of its time responding and transporting people with mental illnesses. Police are also frequently dispatched to deal with people experiencing homelessness, causing them to be incarcerated at a disproportionate rate. So right now we have a situation where it basically means that if you are in any kind of situation like you kind of lost your way, your mind for a second, it means you're going to jail. 100%.
Yeah.
You're a criminal. And anytime you get criminal, you get charged with something, it's harder to get jobs going forward, right? Like, we need to be more careful with thinking we got to book everybody, you know? Not to mention
and the mental health and the homelessness issue overlaps, right? So
Right.
it's like the police aren't equipped they don't have mental health training. They don't know anything. It's just like, by law, we must arrest you and take you away and then make your life worse. Whereas like a social service, like, a mental health professional or someone could get them maybe to the right place, which is definitely not a jail.
Right. So, you know what I was thinking about this? I was watching King of Staten Island, right? And it's like a movie about firemen, right? I know you saw it also.
Mm-hmm.
I don't even know how to call the fire department. How do you call the fire department? Am I dumb? Is there a number? Is it just 911?
I think I've had to call in the fire department before for a neighboring house that was on fire, and I just called 911 and they came.
Right, so 911 goes right. That seems like
the dispatch will put you.
Dispatch puts you through to that.
Yeah.
To that. Okay, well then I'm just dumb there anyway. Wow.
The more you know.
The more no, I mean I would listen. I would assume you call 911, right? It's just one number. But it's like, oh, so we're already kind of doing that. And my point was that we're already like, oh, we get you different services, right? So if we have more specialized services. Look, we're also saying that if you look at the budget of like LA where I live, we're talking about a budget of $3 billion, like half of the city budget goes to policing. So there's no argument that money could be spent for more specialized services. If your complaint is that police are not paid enough, well, then what we call the concept of policing could be more educated professionals who we could pay more and we can open up more funds as opposed to just having more batons, you know? Yeah. So anyway, yeah. Yes. Basically, what I'm saying is that it's interesting because a lot of the stuff I'm reading is about drug, domestic violence, homelessness, and mental health issues. That's the biggest change. So I think we can all probably see. Oh, I mean, if you've heard what I've said here, and again, I'm just some fucking guy reading the internet, right? If you've heard this, and I have a hard time believing that you heard what me and Aaron just talked about, and your thought was, oh, none of this makes any sense. We should keep having everyone get beat up by the police if you need help from your city that you pay taxes to. Because it's also my tax money, right? Like, it's our tax money. So I want this money to go. I'm not some fucking saint, okay? I'm talking about there's like tents of homeless people all over my neighborhood, right? When I walk my dogs, do I love it? Do I love that I got to walk by? Literally needles. My dog literally will like sniff a needle. Like, do I love that? No. I don't like that. But I'm willing, I think even from that place that like, oh, I want these tents gone or whatever, right? I want my tax dollars to go to help these people so they have a better chance of getting their lives together, or that there's services that they're not scared to use. you know?
Yeah. And I think one of the things that people kind of will throw back at this argument is like, well, if you were
Right.
being robbed, you'd want the police to come. And I think the important thing to clear up is that, you know, many people don't want to abolish the police. Like, there should be someone who responds to your crisis, but
Right. But the
does the
far
scope
left,
of police need to be that huge? You know what I mean? Like, it should be maybe a little bit more narrow and specific rather than all encompassing all these crises.
right. The far left, which I have a lot of friends who are, I just by their Facebook, who knows what they really think, you
Right.
know? My far left, I think believe like, we shouldn't have this. We shouldn't have any police. No, you need some muscle. We need,
Right.
but they can't be what they are now, which is muscle first. It's insane. We've all experienced this cops where it's like, oh, the cops. Why should it be like, oh, it's the cops?
Oh, when I'm driving, if there's a police
And you're
officer
not a
behind
criminal.
me and I'm going the speed limit, like, I'm nervous. If I'm behind a cop, I'm nervous. You know what I mean? Like, you shouldn't have to feel that way.
Right.
Period.
And this all ties into the whole thing. And now we'll get into class and stuff. And okay, I don't even need to mention. I don't even need to mention this, but I have people on my Facebook page who I had to like completely unfollow, I because as Aaron knows, I had one of my stand-up jokes go viral, and I got a ton of friend requests, and I was like, I just accepted all of them, because and and so I have a lot of like random people. I don't know. I kind of sometimes like it because it makes my Facebook less of an echo chamber. But man, there are things that are so hard to see. Like if you're someone posting the criminal record of George Floyd, right? Or if you're somebody who posts, like I saw a guy post a meme that's like, if you don't do anything, the police don't bother you, stuff like that. I mean, these people are so disconnected from anything that like it's what's the point of even engaging with them? I like to think someone will listen to this, but I don't go watch the video of George Floyd's murder and tell me that any of the crimes this guy committed, you deserve that behavior. Or that the police should be the judge, jury, and executioner in the streets for your crimes in a country where we all talk about freedoms. One of our rights is that you're innocent until proven guilty. So you're full of shit. You're blindly. It's frankly that behavior is racist because you're
That's
turning a
racism.
blind eye, right? And that's the nuance of racism. It's what's so complicated about it is not many people, like I think when you call somebody racist, you think that it's like, oh, you got me, and then I put on my cloak or something like Scooby-Doo shit, right? And you're like, oh, yep, I've been the whole time. Like we think in our mind that that's what it is, right? That like you're gonna be, oh, you got me. No, it's actually which is opening up a whole bigger can of worms, but no, it's that actually a lot of racist behavior is kind of is not conscious, right?
Right.
You were reading White Fragility or no?
No, I
Oh
didn't.
right.
I read a different book.
Oh right. But like I think that I saw the woman who wrote it like giving she was doing like an interview about it. And a lot of it is a lot of the behavior is more societal, right? Which is what systemic means. So if you can't understand the concept of systemic racism, there's no point for you. There's no hope for you. There's enough information out there, even on these channels that ignore the basic stuff. Okay,
Yeah.
but which is also the problem with kind of this whole like cancel culture thing, because if it's like we're talking about things that are systemic, then you're going to keep calling out individuals. It gets very hairy because we're dealing with, if people are going to be like, hey, let's talk about this, then it can't be like sniping a bunch of people, right?
Right.
Does that make sense?
Yeah. People, because if people are afraid to have a conversation about it for fear that they'll be canceled or outed as a racist, then folks won't want to talk about it at all.
Right. And if you're like, oh, I'm going to point out how you have been involved in how your behavior has enabled systemic racism, right? In society right now, we are not able to handle that kind of nuance, right?
Yeah.
Because even like, I'm not saying it's. I think these people, the Central Park Karen and then San Francisco Karen or whatever, right?
I hate Karen.
If you see their behavior is so ridiculous, it's insane. It's just overt racism, right?
Yes.
But it's like, oh well, they're what you see in the news is that they're losing their jobs. You know,
Which I'm fine with, for the record.
completely fine with it.
I'm happy
Completely fine
about
with
it,
it.
actually.
Yeah, I mean, though, there's videos that are fucking crazy if you haven't seen them.
If you are acting like that,
But
in
I'm saying how
public,
people are going to hear it is like, oh, you lose your job for the dubbies are going to hear, oh, you lose your job for engaging. You know,
which is not true.
right?
Those videos capture outrageous behavior. That's why it's being recorded. You having a conversation with a friend or someone who wants to educate you is not going to be put on video and made viral because it's not worth it. But if you
Right.
are acting like an asshole and someone tapes it, that's on you. Like, you have to pay the consequences.
Absolutely. Especially if you see these videos. If you watch these
Ah.
videos and you're like, I would act like that, well then you
Oof.
are lucky because you got a free pass to you. Now you have a vision of, oh, I got to change my ways, you know?
Yeah, learning moment.
Right. If you would ever say to somebody like, go back to your country, you know,
Oh my God.
and now people have phones. You're getting caught. All right. Anyway, so my point is that part of police defunding the police is it means recognizing that criminalizing addiction and poverty, because we make 10 million arrests per year and mass incarceration have not provided the public safety we want and never will. Okay, I read that out of context, so the word I had to change it as I went, right? But I think we get the general point, right?
Paraphrase. Yeah.
Is that we have 10 million arrests per year, and we have mass incarceration because we're just putting people away for basically. No, we're not understanding why people do the behavior they do in this society, right? We just go like, oh, well, this is what you did, and we treat everybody completely weirdly. We treat everybody on the same standards when it just comes to the law, but we don't what the law is, but we don't treat everyone the same in how we in who the law gets applied to, like who gets enforced on, and we don't think about why certain sects of society would commit a specific crime, right? So,
Right.
where you live, the norm is going to be different where someone else lives, and why do people behave the way they do? Whatever, it's complicated. But the point is that I think, like, when I think about all this stuff, we definitely can't just be blanketly applying the same laws and how we like everywhere. It gets very complicated.
Yeah, it's very complicated. I mean, mass incarceration is
Like different socioeconomic areas need to they you can't be like, oh well, you're not allowed to sell drugs here, but you also can't eat. You know?
right, right, exactly. Well, and the mass incarceration problem is the American way, right? Like, it's an America problem. Like, I think
Right.
I watched the documentary 13th, the Ava DuVernay
I know.
documentary
I
on
haven't watched it
Netflix.
yet. I need to. I need to.
It's super informative and insane. And there's a statistic in that movie that the we have 25%, I think, of the world's prisoners in America. So our system just locks people up, and it's been kind of designed that way over the course of time with three strike laws and mandatory minimums and a lot of laws that were kind of made to set back
Right.
groups of people who live in like urban places where like drugs are more prevalent and all that. So it's just the addiction and stuff like that being a crime is what's leading to a lot of these, incarcerated people. So it it's a super complicated issue with many different areas that just police and law are
Right.
not really fit to address.
So I think look, it's complicated. It's hairy. I've backed myself into the corner a couple times here of like, oh, I don't actually have the solution for that, this and that. But ultimately, what I'm saying, coming from the RGN news source, all I'm saying is that what the term should be is rethink the police, I think, is probably over like reorganize. And also we say, oh, we just need police reform. And we need a database of bad cops. Yeah, we have a database of bad priests, okay? And it did nothing, you know? There's still literally systemic child rape happening, okay? In the church. Did we change the church? No, reform. No. We need to rethink the whole way the thing works and what their role is in our lives, right? We can't be this thing of like, oh, the cops are just blanket heroes. They get to show up to the elementary school. Oh, the cop's your friend. When they're not everybody's friend. It depends on what you look like they're your friend. Can't have it some households in America have to have a talk with their kids that other houses in the country don't. It's not. We need to fix that because they work for the people.
All tax dollars. They're all green, baby. You know what I mean? Like
Absolutely. Yeah. So if you look about it like this, yeah. Again, all right, cool. So I think that the defund, I hope that cleared up. If you're like, oh, defund means it's like, trust me, the police are going to be funded. The military, same thing. They're going to be funded. We're talking about bloated budgets to institutions that are unioned up. Right? And if you want to talk about Republicans, they're always anti-unions. These unions are a problem. The only unions they ever complain about are like fucking school teacher unions and stuff, right?
Right.
Well, I mean, what about, right? You're talking about like tenured teachers, oh, blah, 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 all this. And like, yeah, there's problems with that stuff too. But it's always the cops. It's always like, no, the cops, they take the most risk and blah, blah, blah. No, it's time for we need to have a society where all public officials, right, all municipal jobs, they all function together fluidly. You know, I remember one time a fun thing about the cops and LAPD. I was going to shoot a commercial. I actually shot a commercial with Kermit and Miss Piggy.
This is a big reveal.
Oh yeah. It was did I ever show it to you?
No, but
I have to find it.
To see it.
I have to find it, but I acted with Kermit and Miss Piggy. Yeah, it was very cool. It was very cool. It was good. I'm glad I brought this up. First off, it's a fun brag, and secondly,
very
to
lighten
up the conversation a little bit.
Very
you know what I mean?
cool brag.
Yeah, that was wild. I'll tell you all about that. But this is very cool. But I was like a paparazzi, like taking pictures of like Miss Piggy as she left. Because I think it was Miss Piggy and Kermit were like getting back together. You remember they like split, and so then I was like, "Hey, Piggy, like tell me you guys back together," you know, like one of those.
Yeah.
And then okay, but the way they do it, you actually get to act with them. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So I actually got to talk. I actually like looked in the eyes of Miss Piggy, and was like talk to her. You know what I mean?
I'm so starstruck.
It was so cool. It was like one of the interesting things was like just to see like someone just brushing Miss Piggy's hair, like the puppet, you know.
Right.
And you're like, they took it so seriously. It was awesome. All right. Well, that's a little. The point is that I couldn't find where to park when I was going to this commercial, and I was running a little behind, I think. And so I there was a cop there, and he like waved me down. And I was like, oh fuck. And then and I was like, all right, I'm gonna be late. Plus, I'm getting pulled over by a cop, you know. And I'm like, this is terrible. This is my big break with Piggy. And then he was like, hey, where do you need to park? He's like, where do you got to go? I was like, oh, I'm looking to park. He's like, yeah, you go right over there, blah, blah. And he helped me out. I was like, what the fuck? So first off, why would I first thing assume this guy is trying to do something bad for me? That's whack, okay? And then
that's
secondly,
whack, but I'm surprised that he wasn't. You know what I mean? Like, that's the initial response is like, oh my God, that he was nice to you? Like, that's weird.
Right, and again, I just want to emphasize that my experience with police is almost silly to talk about. I encourage you to go look up, watch the George Floyd video. read about the fucking Breonna Taylor thing, which is insane. Just shot
Arrest
in her
those
house in the middle
guys.
of the night from a no knock warrant. Was it EMT, a 27-year-old EMT? Insanity. Those police are not even charged. They're still walking. It's
An
crazy.
outrage. It's an outrage.
Yeah, so look up, you could Google justice for Breonna, because these people are going to still protest until those cops are charged. They need to be charged now. So, what was I saying? Oh, the cop. So then I figured out when I was on set, I had asked somebody, and they're like, "Oh yeah." I was like, "Oh, the cops are here." Blah blah blah. Like, yeah, we pay the cops a shit ton of money. You have to pay the cops to be on set. So it's like this cop was eating for free. This is why he was in a good mood. He's eating for free, right? And they were getting a payout for like guarding the commercial. Meanwhile, I was just sitting around. I was like, "Oh, I get it." These guys are like, you know what I mean? That's thug behavior to me. It's like, you guys are already paid. Should rethink how much money you guys get. Do we need big productions to be even paying you? And I'm not defending big productions, but I'm just saying, it blew my mind. Like, aren't they just paid through my tax dollars? Now it's more money,
From
Like
like a private
I think it's like a
entity.
donation. You have to like donate to the cops. Like, you know what I mean? Anyway, I don't even know. It's the least of our issues. I'm just saying, it's more about the interactions police. It's like, even from, I think even white guys like me, do you ever think like we've kind of accepted how it is, but does it need to be that way?
Yeah, like should our reaction to police automatically be a negative one?
Right. And that's their idea. It's like fear. It's a fear thing. And I don't think that's the way to go. I think yeah, okay. So,
Speaking of fear,
I hope we cleared up. Yeah, speaking of fear, I hope we cleared up the defund the thing. Now, again, remember, tell me why I'm wrong. Give this podcast 5 stars. Write in the comments why RGN is not a good news source. And let me tell you, I say this right now. RGN. Also, I will say that. I will also say this is not a great news source. You should find your news from somewhere else. But if you want to have a little fun, you stick around here. Anyway, moving on to the next topic here on RGN, the
welcome
regular
back.
guy news. I'm a regular guy with a regular SAT score. Bop, 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 bop. Okay, so all right. So remember, that was my question. Defund the police. Now my other question is it safe to go back to the gym? Okay, we still have the coronavirus happening. And not even like, oh, we got it under control. Like the testing set up, we've got contact tracing. Everyone knows what to do. There's good guidance. No. It's in full swing. States are, as of right now, today is June 16th. States are, and not surprising, all the red states are spiking. And major cities that have reopened anything cases are going up. Okay. So, my main question was, is it safe to go back to the gym? Now, before we get to that, I think we have to take a couple steps back. The news is so fucking confusing on this. And you know what? I don't even fully blame the news here. We have a leader. Donald Trump is the president of the United States. Unfortunately, if you are happy about that, it blows my fucking mind. Because I cannot understand how you think this is the kind of leadership we need during a pandemic and a racial, what do you even call this, divide. Even one of those, let's say even one of those, you think, you know what, we could let it ride on that one. The other one, both? You think both of them we should just have no guidance? Okay. So is it safe to go back to the gym? We should first acknowledge that Trump, Aaron was telling me, that Trump's plan here is, which I've said, even from what I read, his people are saying that ignoring coronavirus is their strategy. He will be holding a rally in June. So they're ignoring it. You don't see Dr. Fauci anymore. You don't see Dr. Baker anymore. You never see them. As far as we know, coronavirus is cured according to the Trump administration. And he has a rally in June. and you have to sign a waiver, a liability waiver, to go to the president's rally, which is an admission that you are taking a risk. All right. Now, also, we also have the same news, really confusing, is that 2 million people in the United States have been diagnosed with COVID-19, but we only have 100,000 deaths. I mean, 2 million versus 100,000, it's fucking confusing. You're like, is this a big deal or is this not a big deal? And honestly, I'm reading stuff, but I still have no idea because how are you to say 100,000 people dead when we've had wars? Less people have died, and we said it's a huge deal, right? So now we have 100,000 people dead. That's that's huge. Plus, it's spreading. We have no way of getting the spread in control. Okay, so then I felt some comfort the other day because the WHO put out a statement saying that asymptomatic spread is very rare of COVID-19. Okay, so I was like, oh, all right, well, that's good. I literally went to the gym because of this statement. Now I'm reading, okay, that people, the person who said this, people were like, they thought it was misleading, and then they went back on it, and it said, here's my line that I want to read. Okay. They said that, okay, they aired or miscommunicated when it said that people who didn't show symptoms were unlikely to spread the virus. And then they introduced, they're saying, well, there's some confusion because asymptomatic sometimes is confused with pre-symptomatic. Okay? So there's a difference. By the way, I don't know how much news I got to watch to hear about this distinction. Pre-symptomatic means, oh, you're not showing signs yet, but you have the coronavirus. Asymptomatic means you haven't shown any signs. You're not going to ever show signs. Like, actually, George Floyd, they did his autopsy. He was asymptomatic carrier of the coronavirus, but his family said, like, there's no signs that he was sick or anything like that. So he would be asymptomatic. Okay. So apparently there's a distinction there. I'm not sure how much fucking news I got to watch to even hear these terms. Okay. I got to go on. I'm on a website called statnews.com. Okay. The majority of transmission that we know about is people. This is the head of WHO. Is people who have symptoms. They transmit the virus to other people through infectious droplets. But there are a subset of people who don't develop symptoms and truly understand how many. And to truly understand how many people don't have symptoms, we don't actually have those answers yet.
Right, because you'd have to do mass testing on people who don't have symptoms to know whether or not they're an asymptomatic carrier.
Right. So basically, yeah, it goes, there are some infected people who are truly asymptomatic, not finding, and but countries are doing detailed contract tracing right now, and they're not finding secondary transmission. The point is, they don't know shit. We don't know. We still don't know anything about coronavirus. So the point is that, hey, from everything that I'm looking at and reading, there's no real reason to be opening up at all except for the economy, right?
There's no reason. In fact, there's, I think, a case for closing back down because there's more. We've seen the spike since things have reopened.
Right. Yeah. So,
Which
right.
Pence,
That's why wearing
which
masks.
Pence said was on account of increased testing, but
Right.
I don't actually know if testing has increased that greatly.
Right. And then it's like, oh my God, people not showing symptoms can spread the virus, whether they ultimately feel sick or not. That's why wearing masks and keeping distance are so important to limiting transmission. Okay, so my point is this, is that I think it's fair to say that we don't know anything about this virus. Still, we're in the same place we were 3 months ago, which, by the way, is not that crazy. It's a brand new virus, okay? Right? My wife in the background says, it's really not that long. Right, Jamie? Is it long? Is that long?
When you say it like that, I'm like, oh, it's been no time at all.
She's like, when you say it like that, it's been all time. That is the RGN being effective here, everybody. You heard it first. I have already
That's
changed hearts
correspondent.
and minds out there. My wife. Okay, so yes, we don't know anything, right? So the gyms are open. I'm living in Los Angeles, right, which is a great place to talk about because it's one of the more conservative places in terms of opening up, right?
Yes.
But my gym is open, and I'm like, should I go here? Okay, so I read this article in the New York Times about gym distancing. Okay, this is what they're saying. Still, the decision about whether to return to our gyms as soon as they open likely will remain naughty and naughty fucking New York Times. Naughty and personal. They don't. They just. They really don't want any readers. Okay. Remain naughty and personal, dependent to some extent on how each of us balances the benefits of exercise, risks of infection, and any health fragilities among those we live with, and will return to work and to return to after working out. Okay. So what does that mean? Basically, is that we don't know shit. That's what it means.
You're
It
basically
means
being told
go
to
to the
take your
gym. If you're
chances.
fucking going to go insane, you could go, but realize we're in the same place we were 3 months ago. There is no difference. And it's also the fact that this whole, the most interesting thing I'm finding is like, this whole like we're in this together. Like CNN's always like, they got Sanjay Gupta going like, we really are in this together. And by the way, I'm beating up on CNN today because I watch it more because if I turn on Fox News for 4 seconds, I got to turn it off. Okay, okay, and I actually do watch it sometimes because I just want to see other sides. But that's just like a we call Joe Biden senile all the time channel. That's all it is. Okay, and then they show clips of the president. That's so fucking funny on Fox News. They try to edit him to seem presidential. And then sometimes you just can't because he's such an ignoramus, you know?
Right.
So they show a clip of Trump, and they'll cut it off and just be like, wow, powerful words from the president. And you're like, wait, did you just see what I saw? A little just be like, we're doing testing. We're doing it the most. It's a great thing. It's a great thing. It really is. It's a beautiful thing. It's a beautiful thing. And then they'll cut away. But, wow.
Powerful.
Beautiful words
Stan.
for the president. Meanwhile,
Wow.
my fucking 8th grade English teacher told me don't to unnecessarily say the word thing all the time. All he has is the word thing, the vaguest word in the English language. Anyway, I'm worked up. I got a little worked up, Aaron.
You're
There's
worked
too
up.
much
Well,
caffeine here.
Talking Fox News, a
Yeah.
lot of caffeine. It's easy to do.
But anyway, so the whole thing we're in this together. No, actually, what we're being told now is that we're going to reopen, right? As a society, we are going to reopen, and it is your choice the level of risk you want to take, which is completely, is completely, we're gonna, it completely is negates the whole thing, which is like we all have to act in line, we all have to be in together, right?
Right.
It contradicts, right? They say
It contradicts.
it's completely contradictory to say like we're all in this together. If we all act together, it's gonna be great, and then go like, you know what? Everything's gonna open, and then you choose your level of risk. And to be honest, if we're gonna be here, this is kind of what everyone was like. The right side of the conservative argument here was more like, hey, there's nothing we can do. We can't outrun a virus. We need to be free, and I'll choose what I want to do, and that's my freedom. And that's still where we are. My point is that whatever side you're on, we're both proving that you're not going to be able to stay inside till we have a vaccine. We can't do it economically, and forget economically. Let's say we had a stimulus bill passed where everybody gets $40,000 a month, and you don't have to work if you don't want. You can choose to go to work, or you take $40,000, right?
Right.
No. You have to take $40,000. You're not allowed to work. We have that. The right will come out of their houses because they're going to be like, no one has the right to keep me fucking locked up, right? You can't tell me where to go. I need to go to fucking Ruby Tuesdays, right? Okay. So the right will come out because they gotta go to Margaritaville on the boardwalk of Myrtle Beach. Okay, that's their right, and they're gonna carry you when they do it, also, right? And then the left are going to come out when any social injustice happens. They're going to throw social distancing out the window. Okay?
Yeah.
It's pick your poison. I mean, I stand more with the left there, right? Where it's like, hey, this is a murder of unjust murder, and it was the tipping point, right?
Mm-hmm.
But it doesn't matter. The result is still the same. The virus doesn't give a fuck for whatever reason you're choosing to feed it. You need to go to Jimmy Buffett's, or you care about the unwarranted murder of an unarmed black man in the streets by the state. Either one is the same result, which is this thing's going to spread. So I think that's really interesting. And it all comes down to Donald Trump. Really. It really all does. Donald Trump is choosing to open this country, which is another thing I'm like, why are they not saying? It's simple math. People are like, oh, well, the economy's going to tank. Well, actually, the economy's boosted right now by the feds, right? They're putting all this money into unemployment, and you can get PUA, which is $600 a week people are getting. So the Republicans are choosing not to extend that. Mitch McConnell saying, I see no reason. That's the equivalent of saying we're opening federally because all state unemployment programs are funded federally.
Right.
So Donald Trump has chosen to open. So now it's choose your own risk.
Choose your own risk. And I think if you look around the globe at the countries who didn't have a choose your own risk adventure, those are the countries where the problem has been decreased. The virus has gone down. I mean, like China's the most extreme case, but they had extreme quarantine 4 months. And then they were down to only one. There was a day where they had no new cases that came along. But that's because they took extreme measures from their leadership. But there's not even a measure of that being taken by the Trump's administration. It's go for it. If you want to risk it, go for it. You can spread it to your friends, your family. Like, it's up to you.
Right. And so that's the world we live in right now, as opposed to if this was this thing, then what's the system? Now we're reopening. How do you tell someone like my mom is the principal of a school, right? So they're going to say, oh, we're opening schools. How do you protect my mother, 65-year-old woman who's the principal? You're telling her she has to go back? How do we protect someone like that who's still working, you know? There's no plan there, right? It's not like we made this plan where we could have been smart with the stimulus money as opposed to just giving fucking $40 million to Ruth Chris and Shake Shack, whatever steak joint wants to take a fucking stimulus check. We could have been like, all right, well, maybe you qualify. Maybe we start Social Security early. I don't know. But we found $3 trillion fucking dollars to just give out, which, by the way, calls out the bullshit of Republicans who are always like, there's no money for all these what do they call them? Handouts, but they call them entitlements, right? There's no money for like welfare entitlements and whatever they say, but they find this money out of nowhere, right?
Right.
And then they're mad at the Democrats who are like, if we're gonna give this money to big corporations, maybe they could like make their if we're gonna bail out the airline industry again, who are publicly traded companies, which means you inherently take risk in the fact that like if the economy goes down, right? You win, you go down. You know, there's a risk. You take a risk, but there's actually no risk for people who can afford stock. Apparently, all right, fine. You guys work for us, right? You work for us. Well, put cleaner emissions on your airplanes if we're giving you $3 trillion. Why don't we bang this out? I thought it was so crazy that they're like, oh, Nancy Pelosi, she's so nuts. Can you believe that she wants to make airplanes pollute less while we give them a fucking $1 billion?
It makes no sense. It's just like,
we can't do two things at once like that, you know?
Why wouldn't you? What is the case against it? You know, like with all this funding and these bailouts. shouldn't that be a priority also?
No, like even if forget about that because that's environmental, so you could disagree. But like also they were saying it's like, oh well, we're giving them money to keep employees, and they're still letting employees go. The bills were still not properly drawn. Anyway, can I go to the gym? How does this affect my normal life? Right. Again, I just think about my tax dollars. I want my tax dollars. Where do they go? So I'm like, oh well, if you're going to clean up the airlines, I mean, because ultimately no one's even talking about coronavirus, but it will. I guarantee you this, it all relates to global warming, right? And it all relates to us knocking down natural habitats for these animals, and then we're in closer proximity to them, and then now we're sharing viruses with them as opposed to just leaving them alone. Okay. Okay. But we're not there in the conversation. We can't be there because people are still dying, you know? The gym. They're saying this doctor says, this is a doctor who studies airflows in buildings and around bodies. That's what this guy does. Dr.
Cool.
Blocken.
Dr. Blocken.
Yeah. He says exercisers breathe heavily and produce many respiratory droplets. And with no wind or forward momentum to shift and disperse these droplets, they could linger and drop inside the facility. So he's like, basically, all of the safety precautions we're taking in a gym, are basically they're helpful. They're good. They say don't do them. Be further away. But people are breathing harder at the gym. There's a germ haven, is what he calls it in this New York Times article, and and you're spouting out more droplets because you're sweating, and you're sharing the same air ducts and everything. Which, by the way, we saw that like Chinese restaurant model where they showed you the infections of all these people who were in the same restaurant. So I don't see, like, I'm going to the gym because, again, you have to choose your own level of risk. And I'm like, okay, well, I basically look at the age of people dying. 80% of people who died of coronavirus, this is dated. This is from the end of March, but I've been 65 and older,
Yeah.
I'm 36 and I've been cooped up in my house, I've been loosely around protests, on the outskirts of protests, and I just had to make the call for myself that I just can't jump around my porch anymore. My legs, my ankles can't handle it. But I'm saying, the question you need to know is like, is it safe to go back to the gym? The answer is no, right?
Yeah, it sounds like it sounds like no one is saying it's safe, but you are being told that you can. So again, you should assess your own level of risk before going back to a gym or, anywhere else in public without using the right precautions.
Right.
A gym's just different because it's like humid in there, the droplets and everything. But
yeah. I mean,
sounds unsafe.
No, it's definitely from everything I'm reading. What you need to know is that, can you go back to the gym? No, it's like, it's not. Honestly, the answer is if you have any kind of pre-existing condition, if you have asthma, if you are 65 and older, the answer is no. This answer is no. But this virus, we don't have a handle on it at all. Now, that being said, you really do have to gauge your mental health. But I don't think so. I think if you're 65 and older, you have a condition that you know about, find out a way to work out outside, isolated, watch a YouTube video. I did it. I worked out on my porch. But so things are opening. I mean, there's no, like I said, seating indoors in a restaurant, I don't know, from the stuff I'm reading, seems a lot safer than the gym,
That's what I was going to say. It's safer, obviously, to like go browse at a bookstore with a mask on than it is to be in a gym where people are breathing heavily and it's it's hot in there and you're working out, producing more droplets. But, even with like going to a store or sitting down and having a meal, I think you still have to consider the risks.
Right. So, basically the answer is no. So I am going back to the gym only because I'm just taking that risk for myself. And my gym is, we're cleaning, we're doing everything we can. And there's not a lot of people in there either. But it's indoor. And yeah, there's a risk. There's an inherent risk there. So yeah, it's crazy because for me, this is hilarious. I love recording this and then I fucking die. Right? Like I die from going to the gym. But like I'm like,
RGN will air a lovely, touching memorial tribute
oh,
to you if
absolutely.
that happens.
Dead Black. One of our own is gone today. He had to get tracked. He told his podcast listeners that he would be, quote, bodybuilder jacked by 40. And
he won't quite make it to 40, folks.
No. But honestly, it's crazy because I'm lifting weights and it does, I'm back in the gym. It does so much for me,
Yeah.
Some people, it matters a lot. So I had to gauge that. But, man, when I'm there, I'm like, this is not a bright move.
Do you wear a mask?
No, I wear a mask to go in, but you don't have to wear a mask legally to work out. There's no chance. It's too hot. Like, I can't wear the mask while I'm working out. It'd be insane.
Some people wear those like oxygen masks when they like run and stuff. Those
Yeah.
like
I don't
didn't know if that was a thing.
The ones with like have the you're talking about the ones that have the there's a couple there's ones that actually have tanks hooked up to them. And then there's ones that have the vent.
Yeah, I've just seen like crazy guys running with those on like at the park pre-COVID, and I thought maybe that was a getting jacked accessory.
There's also other elements of COVID that they're not really talking about, which is like, it also being obese is a big problem with it, right? That counts as an pre-existing condition, but in our society, you never hear from the top. Bill Maher was making this point. You never hear from the top saying like, "Hey guys, it's a good time to lose some weight. We got a rampant virus that's killing people who are out of shape. This is the time to do it." If that's not motivation enough,
Right.
But that's it's more complicated because the economics that come with it. It's hard. Eating healthy in this country for some reason it costs more, even though when you break it down, I mean, like now I'm conflating every single issue in this country, but this country's a fucking mess. I mean, it's a mess. Well, notice when you're in the grocery store during this pandemic, there's a ton of produce, right?
Yeah, my husband works in a produce department.
Right? Your husband works in the produce department. There's a ton of produce, and people don't buy it. It's like even during this pandemic, we produce it. It's the healthiest thing for you to get, right? But all the processed shit is gone,
Right, because it's like an ease kind of non-perishable.
Well, even they're like, oh, we're out of eggs. We're having a meat shortage. And it's like, you know what? Like, as someone who's a fucking dumb meathead I eat like 8 eggs every morning and like whatever. Like, I eat that just because I want to put on muscle. But like, if I didn't care at all about that, it's like the only stuff you need is, and we'll find out, is the produce,
Right.
And we still have it. We have it in abundance. We throw it out. Not only as mentioned, our food chain is so messed up. We're not at all prepared. We have suppliers that only handle restaurants, and they can't even, like, if you're a restaurant, you're buying milk in not just like a gallon jug. You're buying it by the ton or whatever. You know what I mean? I have no I have no increment besides that. It's a ton or a gallon. You're buying a ton. You're buying a carload, right? So they have literally like these facilities that they can't just like, all right, let's switch our food chain. It's not like, let's switch to making gallons, right? And we give them to homeless people. No, we just dump it. You know what I mean?
It's fucked up.
Yeah. So we need a big overhaul here. But we're paying the cops a lot of money to beat the shit out of us. So that's great, right? That's great to just scare us and yell at us when we're trying to pick up our wife from the airport and murder guys. The new case right now that everyone about the cops, and this will be the last thing I say, but I'm happy to end back on this because it really is topic of our time is, black guy in Atlanta, drunk, gets pulled over by the cops. Actually, he's like passed out. He's passed out drunk. I think he was inebriated, but I'm assuming he's drunk. I don't actually, I don't know if I have a toxicology report. You can watch the whole body cam video. The cops tell him to pull into a spot. They're like okay with the fact that he can drive. And then they get into a scuffle with him later because he starts resisting arrest. right? But
Mhm.
they know for a fact he has no weapon on him. And they kill him, shoot him in the back when he's running away. You know he doesn't have a weapon. He's just a drunk guy. You've been there, you fucking cops. You know what I mean? You guys have been
Absolutely.
there. Your job's to get this guy home safe. That's your job, not to kill the guy because he's resisting arrest, which is a fucking ego thing. Like,
Right.
resisting arrest is ego. It's because you couldn't pin him down. If he gets up and runs away, that's on you. There's two of you and one guy.
Right. And
So
to
this
pull
case
your
is actually,
gun is so outrageous.
yeah, I love that this case is more controversial than George Floyd. It's like, oh, it has to be just clear murder for you to realize that the police shouldn't shoot people in the back when they're drunk. I have friends, we get drunk in college and they did shit like that, and it wasn't even in our mind that the cops would shoot us, you know?
Right.
Okay, anyway, so um, thanks for listening to the podcast, guys. I think it's we're shifting to the RGN. I'm going to be keeping track of the stuff that I need to know, how it affects my daily life. Like, can I go to the gym? The answer here was no. What does defund the police mean? That's confusing. And more questions that I can't get answered from news. And I'm just a dude just like you. And yeah, we'll come back. We'll be coming back next week. I normally put this podcast out Monday. The schedule's been shifted because of, again, how weird the times are. I'll get back on that schedule. Hopefully starting next week, but just look when the podcast pops up and I'll figure it out. We're a new pod, but yeah, should be on Mondays. And just to end the pod, I want to focus on, I want everyone to just give you some kind of action item for yourself, which is we got to help get the cops of Breonna Taylor in jail, and they need to be charged. So look up, which is the site? I think it was Justice for Breonna is what you can Google. But I don't know the actual. What's the actual? Aaron, we can find the.
Yep. Hold on.
That I'm going to
Yeah,
donate
it's
to this today.
justiceforbrianna.org is the
Breonna.org.
website. Yes.
So it's
And
BREONNA, right?
Yes.
It's also on my
Justice.
Instagram at Dan Black Attack. I have the link. It's in my bio right now.
Yeah, and the website has several ways you can take action. Some of them don't cost any money. If you're not able to donate, you can make a phone call. There's a number that's going around and demand that these 3 officers be arrested. You can sign a petition. You can use a hashtag. And you could also just talk to your people, like the people in your family, and encourage them to take action as well.
Yeah. And vote for Joe Biden in November. Joe
Yes.
Biden, 2020, that's just the deal. We got to get this guy out of the White House.
You guys,
So,
it's not even a question. And like Dan said, if you feel otherwise, that's fucking crazy. This is insane. There's no
we stop the
leadership.
bleeding. We need to stop the bleeding,
This
and
is
then
an
we'll handle the
emergency.
nuance. No one's saying the guy is perfect, but he's the guy for the job right now. In the system we have, he's the Biden 2020. Go out to vote. I'm going to say it every week. Go to vote. Even if they start, you got to wait for 4 hours. Give 4 hours to your country. It needs it. If they make you
And
wait for 10
register.
hours, wait
Make
in
sure
line.
you're registered. And if you're in a state that allows for mail-in ballots, like I think California does, sign up. Don't miss your chance.
And
to
don't
vote
worry
for
for all
Biden.
you righties. He's a centrist, okay? It's just a guy who's I hesitate to say not insane, but it's a guy. This is someone who's understands America.
Who's had some leadership experience in
Yes,
this country.
some
Period.
missteps.
Plenty of
No,
missteps, but come
but he's
on.
learned from them. He's learned from them. Okay, so yeah, vote for Joe Biden, and justiceforbrianna.org is the website I'm looking at here.
Yes, justiceforbrianna.org.
Justiceforbrianna.org. And also, less important, but important to me, if you enjoyed listening and you want more, give this podcast 5 stars on Apple Podcasts. And write why you think something I said was wrong here, how you disagree with me. You can be mean if you want. And I will read why you think I'm wrong on the podcast back at RGN. All right, Erin?
All
Thank
right.
you for tuning in to
I love-
RGN.
Yep, RGN correspondent signing off.
I'm Dan Black, and I don't know what would be my sign off.
I'm Dan Black, and
Cheers up.
take
Stay
care of
classy. I'm
yourself.
Dan Black, and do the
Wash your hands.
do your do the bare minimum, please.
Yeah, we gotta workshop this for
Yeah, well,
next
I'll have to
week,
figure
next
this out.
broadcast.
All right, everyone. But okay, bye bye.
Bye.